Broadcasting from the confines of an abandoned radio station in the secluded apartment building of high strangeness on the foothills of the Colorado Rockies, it is time for full disclosure of the topics they told us were off limits. Hello there, I'm Connie Willis. This is Coast to Coast AM. And tonight, cryptids and a pirate. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Time now to turn off the lights and join me for another interesting evening of conversation, much needed education, and the chance that we might get a little closer to the truth of what lurks amongst us and what is beyond. I'm Connie Willis, and this is Coast to Coast AM. Hey there, you are listening to Coast AM. Connie Willis here. It is so nice to be back. Saturday night. It doesn't even feel like a Saturday to me, but it does feel good. I hope you guys are having a good night, excited as well. I get so many great emails and posts from you guys, really enjoying the show and thanking me for coming on. Thank you. And thank you, George Norrie, for allowing me to be on. It's a blast. It's been over over 8 years. And it just seems like I just started, and I really do enjoy it. It's nice, and it's so nice when you guys say something really nice to me. In fact, by the way, it was interesting. I'm walking around the city tonight, the area that I'm in, and so I found something in the window of a shop, and I actually said something. Went inside and asked about it, and the lady looked at me, and as I'm talking to her and her husband who own the store. She stopped. She goes, you'll like this. She goes, "Are you Lisa Gar?" And I looked at her and I was like, "I'm the other one." It was great. And she still didn't get my name, but she knew who I was. She says, I listened to you. She knew immediately. And her husband was joking the fact that, yeah, she's up all late at night, and I'm telling her to go to sleep and she's listening to you. And later on, she was like, "Now, what's your name again?" I said, "I'm Connie." And she was like, "That's right. That's right." It was really fun. It was really neat that happened. And she said, "Well, I said Lisa Gar because I looked similar to Terry Gar, and I can always remember her name." And she did. She looked very much like Terry Gar. I can understand that. So anyway, Catherine, hello, and thank you for recognizing the voice. It's always interesting when that happens. I think it blew her mind a little bit too. That was fun, but that was a lot of fun. And you guys are all great. You send great messages to me, and thank you so much for supporting my shows at Blue Rock Talk, which we do all sorts of things. A great community where it's a great community. We all support each other and with our ideas and our thoughts and have a good time too. And then we have another show called Connie After Dark. It's a virtual live bar from milk to martinis. Basically, that's what people have in there, but what happens there stays there. It's a lot of fun, and it really is. You never know what's going to happen there, but it never leaves that area. And then I have a podcast. It's Connie Willis, the podcast. You guys are really loving this. I'm telling you, it is like, boom, it has just jumped like crazy. And what I've been doing is been talking with who we had here on Coast to Coast on Christmas Day night. And that was and is Robert Treat with his deathbed confession. And, being more of an informant, we don't really want to say the deathbed confession. He's going into surgery on the 20th, if you guys remember the whole story. And, we're looking for success. And it's because of you guys. So there's more on the podcast that are coming up on Monday. It's going to be the last ones. However, so catch up to it. It's like the whole phase happening, and it's really good stuff. In fact, some of it kind of could relate to what you're seeing on the news with the UFO balloon type things, possibly. So think about that. Maybe he's giving you exactly what's going on. That's up to you to decide. But there's more coming out on Monday, so catch up if you haven't. It's at Connie Willis, the podcast. And then Philip Kinsella, he's also been here on Coast to Coast, one of the Kinsella twins out in the UK. He's going to be interviewing him as well on my show for that, and that'll be next week. So Connie Willis, the podcast, all that good stuff that you wanted with the informant and the whistleblower. That's Robert Treat. So just all of that information is conniewillis.com. Make it easy for you. So on my show, Blue Rock Talk, if you join it, you're known as a blue rocker. And one of those blue rockers has just continuously impressed me along the way since the beginning with his research. Now we have Bigfooters in there. We have Dogman people in there. We have people that are just incredibly psychic, or they're into the aliens, the UFO, that, all of it across the board. We have ghosts, blah, 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 blah. But one of the people, he's got a group, and they go out and they look. And that's one of the things about the community is we bring in people and talk about, show your pictures, tell us what's going on. What have you found? And a longtime blue rocker is Cryptid 559. That's who we're going to be talking to here in the next couple of hours. And he's just seen so many really cool, unique things. And, their team. And they're very genuine, absolutely very genuine and sincere. And that's important to me. I got an email earlier today, and it was like, hey, I looked up these people and I don't see them anywhere. There's a little bit of them on there in the social media, but I don't see them. And, if you notice, I bring in a lot of people that maybe you've never heard of, but then you continue to follow them because I know I'm boots on the ground. I'm out there researching. I'm out there investigating, and I pick and choose who to talk with because I'm looking for the real deal. And maybe there's a lot of people you've heard over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and you know their name, but it doesn't mean that there's not a whole bunch of other people that don't have a claim to fame that are finding even more information. And so I love to go to those that have not felt like, because sometimes it happens. It just happens where some people will embellish after a while because maybe they've got one story or, they want the claim to fame. So you got to be careful. You really have to be careful in this field. And I'm not even naming any names on any of this. I'm just saying those things do occur. I just know that I look for the most genuine people and sincere people that are really finding answers, getting to evidence, whether they want to show it or just tell it. Because a lot of times I'm out there and the last thing I want to do is take a measuring stick to something. I just want to take a picture with my foot next to it and move on to what's next because you're just so into it, and it's not about telling the world. It's really, you get to a point of, man, I want to know this for me. And that to me is the most genuine at that point when you want to know for yourself because you're not going to lie to yourself, right? Some people do. But anyway, let me introduce them to you. It's Cryptid 559, and they're a team of extremely curious adventurers. They are intrigued. They are fascinated in the unknown world. And we're talking cryptozoology. We're talking Dogman and Bigfoot. And the co-founders are Javier Morales. And look, you're going to have to help me on that, make sure I got it right. And also, we're going to have Jesus Lopez join us as well. And then there's so Jesus and then Jose, and they all go out. I don't know Jose. I've met Jesus and, of course, Javier. And I've always just called him Cryptid 559 because it's easier for me to say. And they are in the beautiful area that's right in the heart of California and near Yosemite and Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park. And it's interesting because when I first heard them talking about stuff and their findings, it's just funny to me where I've been just about everywhere out researching to hear that they're among the avocado trees and citrus areas. Because to me, it's so California to hear that, right? I love it. I love that. I can't put that into words, but it's just so, it's like they're the healthy Bigfoot and the healthy Dogman going through the avocados and the citrus trees. Anyway, they explore and investigate, and they found a lot of really cool things, and they really do find it. So let's bring on the two guys tonight. We're going to bring on Javier and also Jesus. I think we have both of you here. Hey there. How are you guys doing? Welcome to Coast, first-time guests.
Hello. Hi, Connie.
Hey, Javier. Hello. Is Jesus with us? Hey there, Jesus.
Hello.
Hi. So now you guys got to be very careful about stepping on each other, okay? I know you're a
Okay.
good team. So
Okay, you
here
got
we
it.
go. You guys are on coast to coast. You've done some wonderful work, and that's why I wanted to bring you on. Both extremely sincere, and it's not just Bigfoot; it's Dogman. So, but I don't know who wants to talk first. But tell me about how you guys pulled together, how you even got into this in the first place to pull together a team.
Well, let me start. This is Javier. So let me start, Connie, first by saying I want to thank Coast to Coast AM and as you as also Connie for having us on. It's an honor to be on your show. And I also want to say hi to all the Coast to Coast AM listeners and all the Blue Rockers out there.
Thank you, thank you. You're welcome.
Now we started back in 2017, late 2017, going out to this area called Avocado Lake. It's an area 30 minutes east of Fresno, California, in Central Valley, California. And what happened is we heard a story about a family of Bigfoots being out in this area. So we live in a small town called Wheatley, California, and again it's 30 minutes east of Fresno, California. So we started going out there. We just heard the Bigfoot area, Avocado Lake area. That's just 15 minutes from where we live. So we wanted to go out there and maybe catch a glimpse or experience something, right? And so a group of friends, we get together, we start going out there. Um, we go about 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night, and just park and sky watch, just listen. There's citrus around this lake. There's lemon trees. There's oranges. So there's a lot of citrus, a lot of acreage surrounding this lake, and then also it's the beginning of the hills to the mountains. And going up to there's also a dam out there called Pine Flat Dam. So we're going out there, and that was like in late 2017. Just sky watching because it's also a UFO hotspot area. That now I find out, it's a hotspot area for UFOs.
Interesting.
So yeah, so it's so we're going out there, and just that's how it started. And then and come to 2018 in June, it was me, my cousin, go out to Avocado Lake, just a little north of Avocado Lake. There's a bridge, and what happened? What the river that passes through there? It's called the Kings River. Comes down from the dam, and there's a bridge, and we park out there and we sky watch. And this particular night, on June of 2018, we had just gotten some night vision goggles.
Nice.
And it's not no fancy night vision goggles. We don't have any fancy high tech equipment. Okay, it's just these. It was a Nerf brand night vision goggles from the toy guns. We were just trying them out there, see how well they work. So we both had them, and my cousin was using one, I was using one, and we just, we were parked on the side of the bridge on a turnout, and so it was at dusk. We had just gotten there, so it was already getting dark. And what happened? My cousin started using the goggles, and he was looking down into the river, and he noticed some what looked like eye shine from down below the river. And he said it was two pair of eyes that they looked like eyes. And he was telling me this, and I even looked, and they sure did. It looked like they were looking right back at us. So I told him to keep an eye on it with the goggles, and see if they actually blink or like eyes. So he was concentrated on that, and I was over here messing with the other night vision goggles, getting a feel for it. I would put them on, and I would look at all the mountain ridge around us. And behind us is a little mountain, the beginning of the ridge behind us. So as he was doing that, I was just scoping it out. And then I lowered my night vision goggles to my chest. I turn around, and all of a sudden I see this huge creature waving its arms, muscular arms up in the air. And I'm in awe. I didn't say anything to my cousin because I didn't want to lose visual. I thought I was looking at a Sasquatch. And this thing was shaking, moving its arms in the air. And then it got on all fours, and it started running along the ridge behind us. And this is 20 yards behind us, Connie. Just 20 yards behind us. So it was running on all fours, and then it picked up its arms again in the air, and it grabbed onto the side of the mountain. And meanwhile, I can all the outline of this creature. It was muscular. It was muscle. There was no fat. I mean, this thing was lean, like bodybuilder type, you know. And when it lifted up its arms, I could see its hands. It had human hands.
Mm.
And I'm looking at this. I was like, man, this. Meanwhile, I'm thinking it's a Sasquatch. Man, this is a big Sasquatch. I'm finally seeing the Sasquatch. And then it raised up its hands again, and it grabbed onto the side of the hill there. And that's when it turned its head to the side. And that's when I saw the snout. I saw the canines. He had his mouth open, and the pointy ears. And then I go, what? That's not a Sasquatch. What the hell am I seeing? You know, it has a dog. It grabbed on, and it leaped up again. That's when I saw the size. The thighs were muscular. The calves were muscular. The whole body was muscular. The back came down to a V shape. And then it crawled on all fours over the ridge like a spider on its belly.
Oh.
And this happened like within a minute. This thing was fast. The height of the creature, I would have to say, was 8 to 10 feet tall. And the width of the chest had to be 4 to 5 feet wide.
Mm. Well, you never thought you'd see, you know, it's tough enough that you never think you're going to see a Bigfoot, but then when you see something, you never think it's going to be a Dogman.
Yeah, and I go, what? It has a dog head on it, and I never Dogman East Coast or in the Midwest. I heard stories of that, but I never thought they were out here in California. And when I saw that, it's like, whoa, what am I seeing? It's not Sasquatch.
Now, was this the same sighting that I remember you telling me about that had the other visual in it that I'll let you explain if it was on this one? Was it this encounter that you saw the shorts?
Yes. So
oh, please tell that.
Ridge, I'm sorry?
Yeah, please tell that.
Okay, so as it was going up the ridge, I was trying to remember all the detail on it. And when it was going up the ridge, it grabbed the side of the hill and it turned its head. I also noticed that when I looked at its thighs, it had like what resembled as ripped shorts. So then I'm thinking, man, this is a werewolf?
Yes.
Werewolves in movies. It's like, what the heck?
That's what was interesting. I remember you telling the story before, and it was right after we had talked. Well, I remember at least asking you about this around the time I was talking with Paul Sinclair out of the UK. And, you know, we were talking about, hey, Dogman over there is Werewolf. And I just thought, well, of course, that makes sense. And I remember asking, I think I even just happened to ask you, did you see anything like that? And you, or whatever it was, you had said, Connie, this thing had ripped up shorts on like they have been like, you know, that's exactly what happened with the werewolf, right? They were a man, and then all their clothes ripped up as they got, you know, turned into the werewolf. And you actually saw it with shorts, and the shorts were ripped up.
That's what it looked like, Connie. You know how you have the hanging jeans when they're all ripped, like shorts?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looked like.
That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, this thing was stealth. As it was running on all fours, it didn't make any sound. And we're the only ones out there. So you would have to hear breathing or growling or any movement of the rock as it went up the ridge there. Nothing. It didn't make any sound at all. It was stealth.
That is so interesting too, because you know all these other big creatures, sometimes they make such loud noises and thumps, and you hear it and you even feel it. And then other times there's like nothing. There's something else to that. And that actually kind of goes back to Lee Hampel's hayfield on Bray Road, where he's got pictures of things in like bubbles. And I just wonder about that, to where things happen within that bubble. I guess maybe we just don't hear it. So, hey, we got to take a break here, but stick around, Javier. Jesus, we know you're there. We're going to be talking with you too. They have more great stories to tell and great theories too. This is Cryptid 559. We'll find out what's that name mean. We'll find out about that. And I think you'll find this interesting. We'll also take your call so you could talk to them too. Stay with us. More to come. Oh my gosh, Super Bowl tomorrow, Valentine's later. More to come. Woo, that's it's a busy week, right? And everybody's celebrating tonight. All right, stay with us. Connie Willis here on Coast to Coast AM. Welcome back to Coast AM. Connie Willis here with you. Find me at conniewillis.com. Yes, from some of the tweets that I just got recently privately, all these private messages, you can post them, you guys. Go ahead and post them. It's fine. So yeah, you can put them all out there. I can never find messages because they're all private, and some people get mad at me. They're like, you never answered me. I'm like, I never saw it. It's 200 messages down below. But thank you so much for asking more. Yes, the Robert Treat, phase 2 sessions, continue. The last ones are going to be on Monday, so catch up to them. That's on Connie Willis, the podcast. Catch up, learn it all. You may see that it's resembling some of the things that you're seeing in the news. I don't know. You decide. You know, I'm the messenger. I'm the person in the middle, giving it to you, bringing it to you. You decide if that's what you think. And if you didn't hear that yet, then that's the the information that will be coming out on Monday. Following that, Philip Kinsella is going to join in and ask him some questions, and that will be happening on Thursday. So Connie Willis, the podcast, make sure you're signed up. If you do it with Spreaker, by the way, there's a live session I can do. And if I do that, the chat is also live. And I'm looking forward to doing that at one point. It'll only be live there. So that's at Spreaker. So if you go to Spreaker.com, you can look up Connie Willis, the podcast, and go there. Any information that you ever need about me, it's ConnieWillis.com. And thanks so much for supporting me on all of this. In fact, some great deals are on there too. I'm just having a ball, and I thank you guys for your support. One of the people I just absolutely love, one of the teams that I absolutely love because I know they're genuine, they're real, they're sincere, and they are finding some very interesting things. They've got some, if you go to their Facebook group and you also go to their YouTube channel at Cryptid 559 on YouTube. On Facebook, it shows it as the Roman numerals. I think it's kind of cool, but Cryptid is like, no, man, we like Cryptid 559, the numerals. So Jose and Javier are with us tonight. Or Jose, no, it's Jesus that's with us. Jose is not. Jose missed the boat tonight, I guess, right? But we got Jesus and Javier here with us tonight. Jesus, let's bring you up on this question. And how did you guys come up with the Cryptid 559? I was surprised that, okay, it's as easy as that. But then tell me also your all's kind of your mission, your goals.
Well, as far as the name, Javier came up with that name on his own, and honestly, I like it. I mean, it ties in where we're from and what it is that we're doing. So, I mean, 559 is our zip code, and cryptids, now we could say that not only is Bigfoot running around here in the Central Valley, but Dogman and other cryptids that, we've come across in our research.
Do you have a certain mission, or have you thought, hey, we're just going to go out and find these things, hopefully because we're hearing about it, and then you started seeing this and that and started putting some of the pieces together? Do you think you have some good theories or ideas now?
Well, I guess our mission initially when we first started going out because of that report of Bigfoot's being here near our backyards, literally, was to spot these Bigfoots. But when Javier had his encounter with this Dogman, I mean, I wanted to get my experience, and fortunately, that day in particular, I was at work, so I wasn't able to go out with them and explore. But when he told me the following day, I mean, I was just stoked. I was just picking his brain, wanted to, know everything that he was able to see and feel, like, because when you have this type of experience, it comes with a feeling as well. So I was just picking his brain, and I remember going the following day to this particular area because, well, I was sure that there was still something there. So we ended up going the following day to see what was left behind, like what evidence. And fortunate enough that we saw a footprint. It wasn't your typical footprint that of a dog, a coyote. No, this paw was huge. It was unexplainable. And I remember, if I remember correctly, Javier put it out on YouTube, and he had some people that had a little bit more knowledge than us and come on and say, yeah, that's definitely a Dogman paw print. So, I mean, that in itself, like, hey, you know what? We're in a hot spot, and we're getting some good evidence. And I mean, like you mentioned, we're not professionals. We do this because we like going out there and exploring. And I mean, hearing that we have Bigfoots in our backyard, I mean, that was amazing. And Javier brought this up earlier. We always heard stories of Bigfoots being out in different states, and to hear that they were in our backyard, I mean, that was just amazing. And to be able to go out there and look for these stuff and have this type of experience, I mean, happen to him at least. I mean, I'm still waiting for my opportunity to see one of these creatures, but I mean...
Well, what I'm looking forward to is, hey, Zeus, you are... Now, tell everybody what you're doing right now school-wise. What are you going for degree-wise right now?
Okay. Well, yes, I believe yesterday we were talking on Blue Rock, and I brought up that I haven't been able to go out investigating a lot because I've been really tied up with school. I'm pursuing a engineering degree, physics degree, and a math degree. So as a lot of people could probably relate, I mean, it's just a lot of hard work, crunching and reading. Reading and crunching numbers. But not only that, I'm also a parent, so I'm tied up. And I mean, I haven't been able to go out. But when stuff does come our way, there's a little more critical think when it comes to our evidence.
Well, what I like too is that you're going to use the education that you get, and you already have it in mind, and you're keeping this in mind and being prepared to create these things where you're going to create some devices that can actually measure some of the things that no one's been able to measure yet. And, that's one of your ideas and goals.
That is correct. Yes. I know we talked about some kind of device that can project some laser beams, for example, up into a mountain. The technology seems rather easy as far as like projecting the lasers and collecting the data, but it's more in the software where we hope to be cutting edge, where we can develop that laser technology where we could monitor a mountainside and be kind of far away from the test area, not to give ourselves away, but still be able to collect evidence to prove, hey, like, wait a minute, there's movement in this quadrant of the mountain. Let's focus on that and see what it is. If it turns out to be natural to the area, then we can dismiss it and focus our area to focus our attention to another area. So stuff like that.
I like that. I like that you're putting, first of all, congratulations. It's amazing to do 3 degrees at the same time, but with mathematics, engineering, and what was the other one? Physics?
physics.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, I don't even need to say anything. That's amazing. Good luck with that. Javier, let's go back to you. Give us another encounter that has happened.
Okay, well, I want to start it off that Jesus was with us this particular time. So this was.
Uh-oh, you know what? I think you're in a bad area. You need to kind of walk somewhere else or so we can hear you from cutting off there. And we'll give it a shot again.
All right. How's that? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to start it off and then I'll give it back to Jesus because he was with me during this encounter. It was September of 2020. Ironically, it was at the same location as the Dogman encounter by the bridge. And we were going out at dusk again. It was getting dark. And I had a DeWalt spotlight that I took with me. So we park and we get off the van. Same place, Connie, it's the same place. Get off the van and then we're just listening and feeling the atmosphere. And I kid you not, less than 5 minutes later, I hear this screech coming out of the river, a loud screech noise. So I point the spotlight, it's a pretty good spotlight, so it lights up the whole area where I'm pointing. So out of this shrub I see a bird coming out. I see a bird coming out. Now, Jesus, you want to take over?
Yes. So we're focused in this little island near the Kings River, and we're trying to focus our attention to where that sound comes. And it's kind of hard to pinpoint where the noise is coming from, but we're not necessarily focused on the sky. And all of a sudden, we noticed this huge bird come out of nowhere and just flies right past us towards a bridge. So again, we're just amazed that, we got to witness this different type of bird. So, I think we briefly make eye contact, Javier and I, and we're just taking all this information down. So, the critical thinker in me, I'm trying to gauge the size of this bird. So I'm looking for details like that to give me a perspective to at least give a size of this flying bird. So, it was really quick. Again, it was maybe no more than 2 minutes. So we see this bird go off on the distance past the bridge. So we started thinking about it like, dude, what did you see? And then we started describing the features of this bird. And it was not your typical bird. And what I mean, the best way that I can describe it to the audience, it's a bird, but this bird didn't have feathers. This bird had a different type of head. I don't recall seeing feet on this bird, but one odd thing a couple odd things were the color and the lack of feathers. The skin was almost leathery, and the best way that I can describe it to you all is a pterodactyl.
Is that what you thought as well, Javier?
Yes, that's what I saw after we were discussing it. Because when I told Jesus, look, there's a bird coming out of the shrub, and I turned around because I was looking behind us because I know what's behind there. Dogman, I don't want no surprises. So I'm looking around, and I told Jesus, look at that bird coming out of it made that loud screech. So look at that bird coming out of that shrub, and he kept an eye on it. And then he tells me, Javier, that's a huge bird. And when he said that, I put it on there, and sure enough, it had a huge wingspan, and it's like a bat. Like the skin was leathery, like Jesus said. It was brownish, grayish color, no feathers. The wings again reminded me like a bat. It had that, you can see I don't know how you describe it, but it's like a bat wing. And then the head, it had a little nub on the top of the head, and then its long beak. at least 2 feet long. And then it just flapped its wings once, and it was off the ground real slow. And then it did it again in the air real slow, and it went over the bridge casually, and it went towards the dam. And again, I didn't see any feet, but it's, I've heard of pterodactyl encounters here in the valley, and now we saw one.
So you got the Dogman, you got the pterodactyl in the same area.
In the same area, yes.
Has there been any other sightings in that area of something other than those two?
Well, just the Bigfoot family. That was in that same area. It was a family of Bigfoot.
Oh, well.
And then
you got about 3 minutes if you can tell us that story.
We've heard it was a video that actually went viral, and we were watching it. There was another group from here in the valley. They shared that video. And that's how we found out about the Bigfoot family around Avocado Lake and all that. That's why we started going out there.
When you go to that area, because these areas are everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. These areas where all sorts of things, that's my total belief and what I've found, where all sorts of things are in these areas, these pockets. So
yes.
Do you have a different feeling when you're there, or do you see anything different, or do you recognize something that might give a sign that this area is different, or no?
Yes. Me and Jesus or my cousin Jose, when we all go out there or wherever we take out there, we always ask each other, what are you feeling? Is any of us feeling something? Because sometimes we're all feeling the same thing, or one of us is picking it up. Like, meaning someone's getting a headache, a stomach ache, they're getting chills, or they're just not feeling like they feel something's like not right. So we're always asking each other. But when I'm out there and I'm feeling stuff, you can sense the atmosphere change. Like from 1 minute to another, it changes quick.
So you guys also had some encounter with some things up in the sky. Was that another location?
That was at another location. It's more closer to the hills. It's about, I want to say 15 minutes east of Wheatley, where we live, closer to the hills, another area. Me and my family had a UFO encounter, the black triangles, back in the late 80s.
How big were those? Wow.
Those things, there was 2 of them, Connie, and they were side by side. And those things were stealth. It was late at night. You want me to go ahead and tell?
Yeah. We got a couple minutes here.
Okay, so it was about 8:30, 9 o'clock. We were heading home. We lived out in the country, closer to the hills. Our house was in the middle of a citrus orchard, way out in the country, in the middle of a citrus orchard. And we were heading home, and I was looking up at the sky like I always did, and I was telling my dad, I see lights, Dad. I see lights. There's something in the sky. And you know, it's a plane, it's a helicopter. And this time, I told my dad, Dad, I see some lights. And my dad stayed quiet. And he was driving, and he was looking, and he was driving, and he never said anything. And after a while, he said, that's not a plane. That's not a helicopter. So then he ends up pulling over to the side of the road. And we all got off. It was my little brother, me, my mom, and dad. We all got off. I remember we all got off, and we were staring up. And these things were not high. They were low to the ground. I could almost, if I were to reach, I could almost touch them. That's how low they looked.
Oh, my. That's pretty close. We'll come back. We'll ask him a little bit more about that. It's Cryptid 559. Could almost touch them. Oh, my goodness. Cryptid 559, Connie Willis, and Cryptzoology and more. That's interesting. We've got Dogman. We've got pterodactyl. Now we've got black triangles. What else? Stay with us. More to come. Connie Willis. Thank you for joining me. It's Coast to Coast AM. Connie Willis here with you. Yes, those of you asking about Connie Willis, the podcast, and Robert Treat, and you are asking, do you think that, remember, he was not just doing a informant, whistleblower type thing with the elite cabal kind of situation, but also saying why the aliens are here, who are they, and what's to come. yes, some of you are thinking what you're seeing in the news recently has something to do with what maybe he might be talking about. So, hey, more of the podcast coming up with some of these thoughts and ideas that may be coming to fruition. I don't know. It's up to you to decide, but it's Connie Willis, the podcast. That's where you go to listen. Set it for automatic download because more are coming up on Monday, but there's a bunch for you to catch up on if you haven't yet. And then Philip Kinsella is going to be asking him questions as well from the Kinsella twins out there in the UK. All of these people have been guests on Coast to Coast AM. So we are going to go back to talking with Javier and also Jesus of Cryptid 559. You can find them on YouTube. Look up in YouTube, go to Cryptid 559. That's CRYPTID, and then the number 5 and the number 5 and then the number 9. If you go to Facebook, it's Cryptid 559, but it's Roman numerals because Facebook wouldn't allow them to put the numbers down. That's a shame, but I think it looks cool that way. And by the way, they have the coolest logo in the world. I mean, if I could have a logo that would match and work for Blue Rock Talk, that would be it. It would just be blue, and theirs is green, and I just love it. He knows that I always talk about it. They get the best logo in the world. And by the way, you guys were just asked, before we get into the story, you guys were just asked to be at like your first conference, right?
Yeah, we've been asked to be at UFO Con in March in San Francisco.
Congratulations. I know that's really a special thing. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah,
what's that?
We're very excited.
Yeah, I mean, getting on Coast. Hey, Blue Rocker, come on. You're the man. Okay. So you, when we left off, there was, the black triangles, you and your family, your dad was, I guess, just recognizing it at the point that, wow, that's not a plane or a helicopter.
Right. So he pulled over to the side of the road. We all get off. We're staring up at the sky and they were low, very low. And there was two of them and they were huge black triangles. Side by side together, and they were blacking out the stars so you can see the shape. And also they had these white lights, and at every point of the triangle there was white lights, and then one in the center, which was a red light. Both of these had the same lights, and so we knew it was two crafts. You can see them; they were side by side, and they went over us, hovering over us. They didn't make a sound. There was no engine sound. There was nothing. You couldn't hear anything. They were just hovering over us, gliding, and heading east towards the mountains. And we were just watching them as they went over us, and then they went closer to the mountains, heading east. And I'm thinking about it now. It's like they were going to the Sierras, and on the other side of the Sierras is Area 51. It's Nevada.
Oh, wow. Well, just the Sierras alone is pretty creepy, right? I mean, it's got a lot of things going on there.
Yeah, so where we're at, it's like almost right across from Area 51 if you just go in a straight line, just about.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So when on our YouTube channel, we make all these videos. We go out to the locations where the encounters happened, and we talk about it and make our encounter video there. And then we have exploration videos that we go out and check these areas that we get. Somebody told us about an encounter in a certain area, so we'll go out there and we'll go investigate and see if we can find evidence. So I was telling my mom, I'm going to make a video about the UFO that we saw back in the 80s. And she goes, did I ever tell you after we saw those UFOs that 3 consecutive nights she goes, I want to say it was a dream, but it felt real to me. But she would wake up in the middle of the night hovering above my dad with the red light on her.
Whoa.
Yeah. So she couldn't move. She could only move her eyes, and she could see my dad sleeping on the bed. But she saw this beam of red light coming through the ceiling of the house, and she was hovering in the air. And she said that happened for 3 consecutive nights. I told my mom, no, you never told us that.
I wonder, I was going to ask, did you all have any missing time? And then you told that story. I wonder if the rest of you also dealt with something and you just don't remember.
I don't remember if we did it. I was a kid, 10 years old. My brother was smaller. My dad doesn't remember. And then
And most don't.
Another thing, we all stayed quiet after that. We never talked about it until like weeks later when we were having a party at my grandpa's. Somebody brought up UFO, and all of a sudden we all started talking about it.
You know, I mean, tell me what you think, but what I think when that happens is, you know, whatever that trance they put you in, you just forget, and it's all about forgetting until somebody can use a trigger word, and then once that, you know, it wears off at one point. To me, what I've found is it wears off in about 2 weeks. That's what I've noticed. And I think when somebody throws a trigger word and you are conscious enough to remember these things, that's when it pops back up. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I've heard other stories other people have that it's happened to them. It's very similar.
So I don't want to leave out Jesus. So I don't know if you want to tell one of the other stories. I know you guys have several, but otherwise, let's just hear another story before we take some phone calls.
Jesus, do you want to talk about Pictograph Mountain?
Sure.
I love Pictograph Mountain. Yes.
Yes. So we named this mountain Pictograph Mountain, and the reason for that is we were introduced to this mountain by the owner, and specifically Javier knows this person because of his father working for the owner. So he invited us to take a peek and look up there and try and figure what the pictures on the rocks meant. So we went up there with an idea as to where more or less they were located. He and another group of friends managed to get there on their first try, and it was amazing. I mean, they took awesome photos. They got a feel for the area. It was beautiful, but at the same time, it was creepy. So when it was my turn to go up there with him, I was just blown away of the drawings on these rocks, and there's some other interesting aspects of this mountain that just baffles the mind as to why and how it was created. There was a rock in particular way at the top near these pictographs that seems to be cut, and it's cut in a quadrant. So it's almost like a chair. But the interesting thing about this chair, that piece that was cut is behind the rock. There is no way that this rock could have fallen and that piece that's missing ending up behind it. So, I mean, that's just baffling. I mean, there's no way to explain that occurrence happening naturally. And like I was talking about the pictographs, I mean, some of the drawings on these rocks are just amazing. It's hard to describe them. I would encourage everyone to go to our YouTube channel and watch that video and look at it and see what you guys think they represent. To me, on one of the pictures, it's a man with horns. Like, what can that be? We've been told that it could be a shaman that was living up there many years ago. I mean, I don't know. And, I mean, it's an amazing experience to see these, but it's even more fascinating to be there and just feel the energy. I know we talked a little bit about the feeling when we're out there investigating, but when we're there, boots on the ground, these locations have a different feel. And it's not like your day-to-day feel where, you know, it's just like a calm. No, this is like high energy. There has been times where like this energy is so high that you're like, wait a minute, I'm not feeling too good about what we're doing today. I'm going to back up. And I'm going to pivot a little bit from Pictograph Mountain to another investigation that we were at, where I had that feeling, but Javier was totally comfortable. And so there's this island of eucalyptus trees near a busy road here in town where we live. So Javier had mentioned that there was a lot of movement, a lot of change within these eucalyptus trees, and that it would be an interesting area to go and investigate. That day I was available, and I mean, I was game. I'm like, yeah, we're on another investigation. So we get to the area, and I start getting this feeling of I probably shouldn't be here. But Javier was feeling great. I mean, he was pumped up, like he was feeling good. So I communicated with him my feeling, my uneasiness, and I told him, you know what? You continue because you're feeling something that is telling you to go. Go for it. I'll stay behind. I'll snap pictures, and we'll take it from there. So as I'm having that feeling, he's over there exploring, investigating this. It's almost like a dry creek. And in this area where the eucalyptus trees are, it's an abandoned house. And, I mean, for whatever reason, the previous tenants of the house, just moved away, and it's been abandoned for at least 3 years. And no attempt has been made to sell, rent, or take care of the property. So that's odd. But going back to the investigation that day, I wasn't feeling like I was worthy of being there. So I was taking all these pictures. Javier was hearing stuff within the brush, but he couldn't see anything. So later that evening or the following day, he starts looking through the photos that I took. And in the bushes, you could see a figure, or actually a couple figures, looking at him while he's investigating around that dry creek area.
And is that the one, Javier, that was like really close?
Yes.
I
Yeah,
remember.
There was one up in the tree looking down at me, and one right in front of me.
Yeah, I remember you showing me the picture, and I said, where is it? And then you said, well, look. And then, because I was trying to look beyond, and it was like right there on you.
Yeah, they were right there. I can feel them. I can smell them. I can hear them. I knew they were there, and there was a bunch of them there. People say it's Dogman up in the tree, and then the other one looks like a Sasquatch. I've never seen a Sasquatch, so people that have encounters with Sasquatch, they tell me it's a Sasquatch. Now these two are together, so are they getting along?
Yeah, that's my question always when people say, "Well, do you think the aliens and the Bigfoot and all of them are friends?" All I say is I've seen them. They all hang out together. I don't know if they like each other, but I've seen them all hanging out together a lot. I want to go back to Pictograph Mountain because the pictures that I've seen, that's also the rock figure that looks like it is this huge Sasquatch head.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
That's amazing because you guys, it truly, you all obviously know because you took the picture, but it truly looks like it's an area, and it's kind of like an Easter Island type statue, but it's a head of a Sasquatch. And that's really a great find. How did that, when you all saw that, did you just at that point go, holy moly, look at this. It's Sasquatch.
Well, that one is on a different mountain. It's not even Pictograph Mountain. It's close to Pictograph Mountain. But it's a separate one. Yeah.
But it's got a pictograph on the side of it, so I thought it was a Pictograph Mountain.
The other one looks like a Native American side profile of a Native American.
Yes.
Mm.
Yep.
And those mountains are adjacent to each other.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting. Now, what about game cams?
Okay, so one time we went out and we left game cams up there at different spots that we feel are pretty active, and we tested them before we took them out there. Everything was working fine. One is even Wi-Fi. It has Wi-Fi capability, so when it takes a picture, I get it on my phone. So we left these out there. The one with the Wi-Fi was really not picking up much. So we left them out there for 4 days. On the fourth day, we went to pick them up. Now, what's interesting, one of them caught like this. I don't know if it's orbs. Kind of looks like orbs, but it could be bugs. Again, go to the videos and see for yourself. And then on the other game cam, it would only work from. It would shut off in the evenings around when it would get dark. So around 6:37, it shut off and it wouldn't record again until like 9 in the morning. And there's no timer on the game cam.
Oh, it's not supposed to do that.
It's not supposed to do that, and it did it for the 4 days. And on the fourth day, when I went to go pick it up, it was after 6:30. I went late, and it was taking pictures of me coming up, so it was working.
And you checked it out to make sure that there's no timer set up. You made sure that was the case.
Yeah, there was no timer. There's no timer on this thing.
Oh, that's interesting.
So something messed with the frequency. They shut it off. I don't know, but yeah, something's up there is messing with it. And also at that pictograph mountain, I had heard stories before we even been up there of a lot of UFO sightings around that, a lot of strange lights around that mountain. And also there was people seeing a large bird that illuminates lights from underneath. So
a bird that has lights underneath it? Is that what you said?
Like a bird that's what they say. It has some sort of light underneath it.
Wow, I was thinking the pterodactyl at first, but this is something different.
Yeah. I don't know if it was maybe a UFO that they saw, but they said it was a bird. And I've heard stories of this group coming in from the East Coast. I heard this from the owner that owns the land around the mountain. We had heard that there was a group coming out of the East Coast trying to capture this bird.
That's, wow. That's all I can say. I love stories like this. This is Cryptid 559 who we're talking with. You can find them on YouTube, Cryptid 559. Also Facebook, Cryptid 559. You're going to see that as Roman numerals there on Facebook. Love finding people that are sincere, genuine, and have stories, have encounters. I rather call them encounters. Yes, so some stories you got to watch out for. So stay with us. More to come, and we'll take your phone calls to Cryptid 559 on Coast to Coast AM. It is Coast to Coast AM. Connie Willis here with Cryptid 559, and you can find them at Cryptid 559 on YouTube and see a lot of great stuff, exactly what they're talking about. And you can also see them on Facebook, and you're going to see Cryptid 559. The 559 is going to look like the Roman numerals. Javier and Jesus talking to us, telling us stories. We got some phone calls to take too. So you guys hang in there. Let's go ahead and grab a call. Let's talk. Let's go to the wild card line number 3. Eric out of Nevada City, California. Welcome, Eric. You are on Coast to Coast AM.
How you doing, Connie?
Great.
Oh, that's good. I actually have a Nevada City address, but I'm like 25 miles out of town. I live up in the mountains. And this area up here, I've been up here 23, 24 years. I was born in Nevada City, but it just got too crowded for me, growing up too big. Spent my entire life in these mountains, and I've seen some things that were just almost impossible to believe. But when you see it, you got to believe it.
I know it, right?
Well, I wasn't on drugs at the time, so I'm pretty sure that was it. Not that I'm on drugs now, but I sure heck wasn't then, But the road that I live back in on, I'm 3 miles back in. It's a dirt road, and it goes through a lot of forest. I mean, a lot of forest. And there's a spot about a mile in on it where it's a level spot, and then it kind of takes this really sharp right-hand corner. We're coming home really late at night. The elderly lady who lives on my property, she was with me. And we came around the corner, and there was this, I don't know, it had a coyote's head, it looked like. Had coyote fur. The body was definitely shaped like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of hyenas. And I mean, the head looked like a coyote, but it was like 3 times bigger than any coyote I've ever seen, maybe 4 times. Had to be 350, maybe 400 pounds. And I had the high beams on, and it walked right out in front of my forerunner. And as it kind of came around the front, it was only about 6, maybe 8 feet away from my door, and I had the window down. And with a lot of the things I've seen up here, I'm getting kind of used to, so they don't bother me too much. When I first moved up here, there was a family of Sasquatch that came across maybe once every other month, and they would actually let me know they were coming about 3 in the morning. They'd start beating a stick on a tree or something, so I kind of got used to that. This thing looked at me, and all the impression I got was, you mess with me, and I'm going to grab you by the legs and say, make a wish. And as big as this thing was, there was no doubt in my mind it could absolutely do that. I've been in the woods all my life. According to my mother, my first summer on the logging job, I was 3 months old. Of course, I don't remember that naturally, but, all the summers afterwards and, up until the time I started school, even the springs, we were up on the logging job. So I've been in these mountains all my life. I've seen things. Actually stepped through a dimensional portal one time when I was 7 years old, me, my cousin, and my brother. And let me tell you, we got out of that. It was pretty scary. And it's the only way I can describe it. It had to be a dimensional portal.
Okay, but first of all, you need your own show. And I definitely want to know, I mean, this is great stuff. And I definitely want to know if you do have a question for Cryptid 559. But tell me about the portal when you went into that. What was that like?
Everything kind of went from, normal colors as you're walking up on a summer's day and the wind was blowing. We were going up this trail up a mountain, and we were on a great big mountain up above Quincy, California. And we're not supposed to get out of yelling or honking range, but of course we did. And there was a big tree laying in the middle of the trail, and as we crawled over and got to the other side, we noticed that the colors were dimmer. There was no wind, and all the way up there was a breeze. No wind, nothing was moving. The only sound we could hear was this little creek that had a little waterfall in it, which sounded like Niagara Falls and shouldn't have. And this horrible, awful smell of rotting flesh. I mean, the hair stood up on the back of our necks, our arms. I mean, we hadn't had hats on. We probably noticed our hair was standing up on top of that, too. And let me tell you, we got out of there quickly. We turned around. You could see back over the log. The wind was blowing. There was birds flying. You could see all that. But where we were at was just that horrible, awful smell and the sound of that little tiny waterfall, because it was only a few feet away from the trail, and we walked over, and it should not have been that noisy. But it was. It sounded like Niagara Falls. I mean, it was just so loud it was almost deafening. And that smell was just outrageous. So we didn't stay there but a few seconds. We got the hell out of there. Jumped back. So Eric, everything was fine.
Eric, if you don't mind, can you give your information to Donna, our call screener, so that I can contact you at one point and bring you back on for a show, because you can definitely tell a whole lot of those. I appreciate that. So you guys at Cryptid 559, can you relate to the things that he's talking about?
Definitely, yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. Can you elaborate?
On the dog-headed, the Dogman, yeah, I saw that. It had like a German Shepherd. The one I saw, it reminded me of a German Shepherd head, dog head. And then the smell, when he said the rotting meat, we had another encounter at another location where it was me and my cousin and alongside this road, and as soon as we got off the van, it hit me. It was like a skunk smell with a mixture of rotting meat. And I knew someone was there, and there were structures in there and these eucalyptus trees. And I just told my cousin, start taking pictures of any of the dark areas, start taking pictures. And sure, when we got back home, we see this creature. It looks like a Dogman staring right at us. It was right in front of us, 10 yards away.
You know what I notice? It seems about when people talk about the Dogman, it seems like, or at least what Eric mentioned, what you guys have mentioned, they, like he said, it just walked right in front of the Forerunner, and your encounters, they were very close.
Yes.
It seems like, I mean, they really kind of get up to you and let you know, hey, here I am. And,
yeah,
usually the Bigfoot are a lot more stealthy.
Yeah, and I get the feeling the Dogmen, they don't care. They're not afraid of you.
Yeah.
That one that I saw, I don't know if it was trying to sneak up on us, and I just turned around at the right time, or it was distracting me from whatever my cousin was seeing down below the river, I don't know if it was smaller ones of them or it was another one that was down there. I don't know.
Were you the person that told me about seeing a leg from a cornfield or something?
It was actually it was in the same area, Avocado Lake area, behind Avocado Lake and these limited orchards. There was one night we just parked on the side of the road and we were just listening. And again, this is late at night, 10:30 at night. And we're just sitting in the vehicle with the windows down, and we hear these two loud yells from one opposite of each other in this lemon orchard, and it sounded like answering each other, this crazy chicken sound, and they yelled back and forth, and we were like, "What the heck was that? I never heard that kind of sound before." And then so we were quiet, and I had my spotlight, so I was spotting, where the sound was coming from. I was with the light. And then all of a sudden I'm hearing like branches snap, like it's moving like across the street from us in the lemon orchard. And then I was just panning where I'm hearing the snapping with the light, and all of a sudden I noticed underneath, these lemon trees are pruned up about 2 feet off the ground. So you can see the tree trunk of the lemon tree. But on this particular tree trunk of this lemon tree, I see another one next to it. Like, wait a minute, that's not a tree trunk. It looks like a leg.
It's a leg. Oh.
I can see the calf, and I can see it has very little hair, but you can see like grayish, brownish skin color. And when I had the light on it, I told my cousin, dude, that's a leg right there. But I couldn't see anything above the tree. And then when I said that, it moved its leg behind the tree trunk out of the light.
I only laugh because I know being in those situations when you actually see them, it's like, oh my gosh, I just saw the leg.
It wasn't a coyote. It wasn't a little leg like that. This thing was muscular. And I don't know if it was a Sasquatch. And I don't know if it was a Dogman.
When people describe a Dogman, I don't know why I'm echoing. I hear a huge echo. I don't know if somebody's got the radio on, but they need to turn it down if you do.
Nobody around.
Okay, I'm hearing an echo. But So, what I've noticed about when people describe the body of a Dogman, if you've ever seen on YouTube or some sort of video out there, and I know people have it, there are some viral ones where at the land down under where the kangaroo are, people have videos where kangaroo will come up to somebody's house and they want to get in, or they're looking in the window and you see an actual, kangaroo. I mean, we're not used to seeing them here, right? But man, their muscles are absolutely amazing. They are unbelievably built. And if you see one of somebody, go take a look on, some viral video, and you're going to see what sounds like to me what most of you guys describe of the body of a Dogman, which is absolutely powerful. And when you see one, you won't believe it. You're like, oh my gosh, that's a kangaroo. Oh man, it's not like the cartoons we grew up watching. So absolutely amazing. Let's see if we can't grab another call here. Gary, wildcard line number 2 out of Scranton, Pennsylvania. Hey there, welcome. You're on Coast to Coast.
Hi, Connie. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes.
One person I always admired a lot because he was like a modern day Horatio Alger was. He was very honest. Was the late Larry Flint. Did you ever get to meet him? He was from Kentucky, but did you ever interview him or anything over the years?
No, I did not. No, I did not.
And what about when you were at QVC? Did you ever meet that Rhonda Shearer?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I used to watch her on USA Up All Night years ago.
Yes.
My question for Javier and Jesus is this: I haven't heard about them in a long time, but in the Texas and the Florida and the Puerto Rico and in Central America, people used to see those chupacabras. And when I was wondering, I don't know if they're from a interdimensional, or if they're from outer space, or maybe there's some kind of hybrid mutant made in a biological laboratory. But have you guys, Javier and Jesus, have you ever seen any over the years? Or
well, we
haven't. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sis.
Go ahead.
We actually near again this Avocado Lake area, we've actually found some prints that have 3 toes, and they look like reptile toes.
Oh, I heard you say the word reptilian. Yeah. and let me say something to that. And thank you, Gary, for your call. I hope you answered enough. Be sure and answer more if you need to. But when you say reptilian, okay, so I got a question for you. If you need to say anything else, to him, go ahead. But the reptilians, okay, you have talked about UFOs. You've talked about reptilians. Now that came out of you. And then we've got the Dogman, and we've got the Bigfoot. We've got the pterodactyl. Are they, to you, are they all friends? And also, you have spoken before about, usually I hear black cars that hang out. You guys were talking about white cars, and you also spoke about some bushes that got cleared out, or an area got cleared out. We only got about 3 minutes, so I'm going to see if you can throw in as much as possible there.
Yeah. So we found, the prints, the three-toe prints that look reptilian to us, reptile type. And also, we have these white vehicles that are, when I did my Dogman encounter, it's in the video. You guys got to go watch our videos. They passed, and they were monitoring, they were watching us, see what we're doing. And then we've captured them at Pictograph Mountain also. We have a picture of them. And the owner even asked me, who are these vehicles on my property? I go, it's not us. I told them it's not us. So I don't know how they're finding out about the area. I try to stay away from saying exactly where our locations are because of that. At the beginning, I was saying the actual location where we were going and where we're finding stuff.
Yeah, never do that.
Never do that. What happened when we went back, everything was cleared out. Like, everything was torn down. The whole habitat was gone. So I'm not doing that anymore. So we try to stay away from saying exactly where our locations are.
And who do you think did that? You think it was the landowner? You think it was somebody else wanting to, in the know of these types of things and just clearing it out so you wouldn't come back and talk about it, or just to get them further, deeper into an area maybe and not so close to where other people can go?
Yeah, I think, they told us it was the county. So, but what was funny, it was this landowner's property, but it started at the beginning of the property and it ended at the end of the property. So it was only his section. It was nothing in front of across the river or next to neighbors. It was all the same. It was just his area. So I think someone's monitoring and they're listening, and if you give out the exact location, they're going to clear that area so they can move, go away, and you don't find anything anymore.
Cryptid 559 is who we're talking with. It's a team, and they enjoy their time. Javier and Jesus. Before we wrap it up here, and you can find them at Cryptid 559 on YouTube and Facebook. Jesus, anything you want to say before you go?
Of course, yes. I just want to touch on Eric's point where he mentioned portals. I do have a wild theory about portals, specifically in this Avocado Lake area. So, I have similar opinions or theories behind the portal thing. And Gary's chupacabra question, Javier has came across some very weird carcasses of goats or sheep in some of his other investigations. So, I mean, it's in the realm of possibility that we might have the chupacabras running around here in the Central Valley as well.
And you said it was such great accent there. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Javier, we got like 30 seconds. Any last words from you?
Well, I just want to say thank you again, Connie, to you and Coast to Coast for having us. And thank you to all your listeners.
Well, that was quick. Excellent. Absolutely. You're welcome. Javier and Jesus, thank you as well for joining us. It's Cryptid 559. You can find them on YouTube, Cryptid 559, and also Facebook. And they've got some great stuff. Sincere, genuine, real people out there doing it, and all this activity happening around them. We can always talk more, but hey, time for our next guest coming up. The captain, a pirate. He's got it all. More to come. Stay with us. It's Captain Martin Bayerle and Connie Willis here on Coast to Coast. Connie Willis here, blinded by the gold light shining, maybe possibly here on Coast to Coast AM. Stay with us because coming up, we're going to be talking to the Captain Martin Bayerle. He is going to be telling us about his pursuit of the truth of what could be the greatest of all treasures to be recovered, the riches from the sunken white star liner RMS Republic. You're in for a treat. Stay with us, Coast to Coast AM. It is Coast to Coast AM. Hello there, Connie Willis with you. Wow, Valentine's Day is coming up. I didn't even realize it, honestly. I just was like, what, Valentine's? And I know that because it's on, Tuesday, I think it is, that everybody's kind of celebrating it this weekend, right? And then also with the Super Bowl. Amazing weekend. Lots going on. And beautiful weather, at least where I am. And hey, you can't beat that, right? So we've got another great guest coming up. Beforehand, though, I want to remind you, people are asking me about the Robert Treat deathbed confession. What's going on? Surgery coming up on the 20th. You can find out more by going to my podcast, which is Connie Willis, the podcast. Go to Connie Willis, the podcast. And if you haven't heard all of the episodes, all the drops, well, get in there now and catch up on it. Connie Willis, the podcast. And then Monday, you're going to hear another set of them. And then you're going to hear from Philip Kinsella joining the show and asking some questions to Robert. And he is part of the Kinsella twins in the UK. And we've had both of these people here as guests on Coast to Coast AM. If you need more information, go to ConnieWillis.com. Join my other shows as well. We have a great time. And from time to time, we have people like our next guest that join us. In fact, he's going to be on Blue Rock Talk, my show, in the next Thursday. Not this coming Thursday, but the next Thursday. So you can see him live. Sometimes he wears the patch. Sometimes I like when he wears the patch. I think it's cool looking. And then he will be showing us a bunch of the pictures and stuff that you don't get to see here on radio, but you get to hear, and you will learn the character very quickly with just a few words. You will already feel as if you know the Captain Martin Bayerle as your uncle. You know what? I think that's true, Marty. I think you are kind of more like everybody's uncle. What do you think of that?
What do I say? Arr!
He's the pirate. I got to tell everybody. So we had you on a long time ago. You've been on my show several times. You and I have become friends along the way. And where I had first seen you was, I guess it was History Channel's $1 Billion Wreck. And I loved the series.
I think you picked up on me much earlier than that. You were before $1 Billion Wreck, I believe.
No, that's where I saw you, because that was really you. Oh, Siri's talking to me now. Hold on. What is Siri's talking to? She's like, no, it was when she watched the $1 Billion Wreck. No. I saw that, and I couldn't believe it. I thought it was this incredible documentary. I thought they did a great job, and that's where I saw you and your son, and I think Grant is amazing. I've only seen pictures of your daughter. She's beautiful. But you've got a whole family thing going on, and dude, man, come on, let's
The
get the
apple doesn't
money.
fall far from the tree.
So tell people, it's interesting. Your first book, I know you got another one coming out, but your book is absolutely amazing. When I heard, okay, here's this, and I'm going to let you tell the entire story, but when I had seen, oh my gosh, look at this wreck, look at the money down there. Why hasn't he pulled it up yet? You know that I went to investors and I started working with you on that because it's like, why has this not been brought up yet? So and your book is amazing. When I first tell people about it, they say, oh yeah, right, whatever. And then when they get your book, they are absolutely there they are. Then that's when they want to talk to you.
The book, The Czar's Treasure, it's available on Amazon, goes into detail on exactly why the ship carries the cargo that she was always rumored to have carried. The book details a $3 million cargo in 1909 coins that would have a value today about $1 billion. So that was the premise for the History Channel show Billion Dollar Wreck. We've since come into information, and this is more exciting, that the $3 million on the wreck that we've identified initially, and that's in my book, The Czar's Treasure, was only a part of a $25 million shipment. So if $3 million is $1 billion today, $25 million is about $7 or $8 billion. So I would say History Channel significantly undervalued our story and the price on the wreck. So we're at least the $5 billion very conservatively.
I don't know. You do so much research and you find out so much. I mean, in the next coming months, it could be the $1 trillion wreck, and I would like that. That would be okay.
No, I don't think it will. I don't think it will be the $1 trillion wreck. We every time I looked at the wreck, we found two cargoes. Basically, one was an $800,000 U.S. Navy cargo that was going to the Great White Fleet, then at Gibraltar. Then the $3 million cargo, which was a short-term loan made by the Russian State Bank, going to Russian warships at Gibraltar also. And then, of course, what we did is we identified the additional $22 million, which makes it a $25 million shipment overall. There's a lot of history involved in this, and you have to really understand the facts that are related to the cargo. Most of these salvage companies, the easy thing is that, well, here's a manifest, here's the cargo on the manifest, we're going to go out and recover it. And that's the extent of it. But when you look at all the history of salvage, you look at such wrecks as the Laurentic, the Niagara, the Edinburgh, all of those were government shipments, and the shipments were not disclosed until after the cargoes had been recovered. And that's exactly what we have here. We have two government shipments, or one quasi-government. The U.S. government Navy payroll was definitely a government shipment, and that was $800,000 in 1909. That's conservatively about $200 million today. So if we focus just on that cargo alone, there's plenty of room for profit for both our investors and for us recovering that cargo alone. But the $3 million was always the rumored cargo aboard the wreck. If you look at our website, rms-republic.com, and there are links on your site, Coast to Coast, that references our sites. But if you look at the rumors that originated, the $3 million has been the solid number. And when I researched that, I originally thought the money that was on the Oceanic, which was a White Star liner that left New York January 13th, 1909, it had $3.5 million on board. And I said, well, that has to be it. Another White Star liner, Republic White Star liner, they're both coming from the same pier. They said it went on the Oceanic, but I think it went on the Republic instead. And the $3 million complied to the rumor. So we did literally years of research on that, and we did import-export analysis. All of this information is in my book. We identified the $3 million on the Oceanic, and unfortunately, and I had said this years ago, I said, if we identify that the Oceanic's cargo arrived, there's no money on the Republic. So we identified it, that it arrived. We found it in Bank of France records. We're actually in the Bank of France records, and the Oceanic's cargo arrived. And I was actually very, very disappointed because I put myself up to a challenge. Did that money arrive? And it arrived. So we then went back to the market, basically reading all the newspapers, the financial newspapers in New York at the time, trying to identify what's going on. And we found another $3 million transaction. It was a 30-day short-term loan. There was no lender identified. There was no borrower identified. But several newspapers reported it, and it was at a very low interest rate. It was at 1.5% interest rate. It was a 1.5% interest rate for 30 days. Of course, that's an annualized rate. So there we have a $3 million transaction. The basic concept was, well, what's happening in the market? We have this rumor of $3 million on Republic. Well, there's this cargo on the Oceanic that probably fits, White Star Liner, but no, that arrived. Now we have this other short-term loan, 30 days. And what else is happening in the market? Well, Russia at the time was selling its 1909 4.5% bonds in major markets around the world. They were selling them in Paris, in London, in Amsterdam, in Berlin. And, of course, naturally, we anticipated that they would be selling them in New York as well. So I said, all right, let's investigate the Russian loan a little bit, see how that worked. So we went into the Paris archives of Credit Lyonnais and Societe Generale. They were two banks in the French syndicate that floated the Tsarist bond. And we found the actual syndicate document, how Russia was paid out of the $240 million that they raised in 1909. And then we also identify what that money was for. Basically, and we get into the history now, in 1904, Japan attacked Port Arthur, the Russian naval base at Port Arthur, because Japan wanted to extend its influence into Korea and into China. And, of course, there was a conflict between Russia because Russia wanted to have a warm water naval base, and Port Arthur provided that. So I think it was February 8th, 1904, I think, if I remember correctly, that Japan launched a sneak attack on Port Arthur, bottled in the Russian fleet. So Russia sent its Baltic fleet all the way around the world to the Straits of Tsushima, and the Russian battleship fleet was destroyed. Japan essentially won that war. But when you fight a war, countries need money. So in 1904, after Japan attacked Russia, Russia had to raise money to fight Japan. And they raised $150 million on the French market. It was only a 5-year loan. No one expected Russia to lose. They had an easy time raising money in Paris. Paris were the Tsar's bankers. And they raised $150 million, 5-year loan. And, of course, in 1904, 5-year loan, when is it repayable? In 1909. So 1909 rolls around, and they have this major obligation. The $150 million loan is coming due, and, of course, what they do, you might think of it as, if we did it privately, it would be a Ponzi scheme. What they do is they put out another loan to pay off the first loan. So the second loan was put out in 1909. It closed January 22nd, 1909, which is the very day the Republic sailed from New York. It was $240 million. $150 million was to pay off the 1904 loan coming due in May of 1909, and $90 million was to be applied to Russia's budget for 1909. So we sell the bonds in New York, and some bonds in New York. So we acquired the syndicate document, and we identified that Russia didn't get that $90 million in new money right away. When the loan closed January 22nd, they didn't get $90 million that day. That $90 million, after they segregated the $150 to pay off the 1904 loan coming due, the $90 million was paid to Russia over a period of 6 months. So she received 20% February 22nd, 20% March 22nd, 15% until they received the entire $90 million. So there we have, that was the key. That was the breakthrough. That was the epiphany, if you will, of why Russia, or why someone needed 30-day money at a very low interest rate, because Russia didn't get that money, the $90 million, for 30 days. Now we only got a first payment. They got $18 million on February 22nd. So that's why the old saying is, if you have money coming to you in the future and you need money today, you borrow against the money coming to you in the future. So that's the 30-day loan. And why was it at 1.5%? The going market rate, the 30-day money market rate, was 2.25% in New York at the time. Who gets money below the 30-day market rate? The market dictates the price. Well, Russia, even though the loan closed January 22nd, 1909, the money became Russia's money, although it didn't receive it for 30 days and then a payout over 6 months. So Russia earns interest on that money until it's received. So Russia was getting 1.25% on its money until it was paid off, until it received it, but it was only paying 1.5% for the money it was borrowing in New York. So essentially 0.25% on an annualized basis. It was getting free money at New York. And it was already into its 1909 budget, so that's why it got the $3 million short-term loan. And that makes perfect sense. The Republic sailed January 22nd, 1909. The loan closed in Europe 3 p.m. January 22nd, 1909. That's 9 a.m. New York time. New York time is enough time to move the $3 million. Let's just focus on that, what we have in my book, and then we'll go into where the extra $22 million comes from. The $3 million is enough time to move it from the sub-treasury in Lower Manhattan to the White Star Line Pier, which is just a few blocks away. So the $3 million we identified, it was a short-term loan brought out by the state bank. We then acquired through the Societe Generale Credit Lyonnais internal banking documents that there was an instruction by the Minister of Finance, the Russian Minister of Finance, to disperse directed to the French banks who held their money. It says, all right, on February 22nd, we need 3 payments of $1 million each to the state bank account on February 22nd. Well, that makes sense. We actually found 2 instructions, a third one we haven't found yet, but no one single bank of the syndicate had $3 million to disperse. That's why they had to issue 3 instructions. We found 2 of them, one to Credit Lyonnais and one to Societe Generale, $1 million each. And it's to the state bank on February 22nd. All the other disbursements for the remaining 6 months went to the state treasury. This is the only time those payments go to the state bank. Well, the state bank was the commercial bank of the Russian government. It was a short-term borrower. They're the borrower, and they needed to get that money from the loan to repay the 30-day loan in New York. Now the question is, why could they get below market rate interest? All right, let's talk about the little financing and how banks operated at the time. Everyone was on the gold standard, and since they were on the gold standard, you have foreign exchange banks. Now, how does a foreign exchange bank make its money? A foreign exchange bank will have credits abroad that it could sell in New York. Let's say it's a New York foreign exchange bank. Will have credits abroad that it will sell to its New York customers at a profit, so that their New York customers can make remittances to French debt obligations. If they own a winery, for example, if they're importing French wine, they have to pay the French winery money for that wine. Well, rather than ship physical gold, they would find a bank that has the credits abroad that they could purchase at a profit from the bank can sell at a profit to the person who has to make the payment obligation. Again, there's no wire transfers at the time. You either paid in gold or you paid in credits abroad. And that's how the foreign exchange market worked. So where is the New York bank getting these credits for the money that is loaning to Russia for a 30-day short-term loan? It's getting those credits abroad. So that's why it could loan that money at below the market rate, because it's getting those credits abroad, and it can sell the credits abroad at a profit once they become available, once Russia pays in 30 days. So that also makes sense. That's why Russia could get below market rates, because the foreign exchange bank is making the profit in Paris. So that's the $3 million. Now we get into more history. We get into why did $22 million? And this is new information that we just recently acquired.
Okay, hold that thought then. Hold that thought, because I'm sorry. Can you repeat all that?
You have to read my book.
I'm sorry. I had some trouble with my headphones. No, we're going to take a break here, so we'll come back with the new stuff. We'll allow you to take a breath there. And I'm looking forward to having you on my show in the future as well, on Blue Rock and my podcast. And you guys, it's no longer Captain Martin Bayerle. It is Uncle Captain Martin Bayerle. I love that. I think that totally works with your personality. We've got definitely more to talk about, and you guys are going to be surprised, those of you that don't know the story at all, when you even know how close it is, and you know what he's got to do to get this money. So let's see what happens. We're definitely working on that along the way. So this is Captain Martin Bayerle, and you can find more information on him at lordsoffortune.com. And you can also go and see some really great pictures. We've got the links over at coasttocoastam.com. So stay with us. The Czar's Treasure. Connie Willis on Coast to Coast AM. It is Coast to Coast AM. Connie Willis here with you. And please join me at my other shows. I'd really love for you to be there. We have a great time. Blue Rock Talk is one of them. Live investigations of creepy hotspots and just good community fun. Live and just, I think you'll enjoy it and become a member for a long time. It's a lifetime kind of thing. Also, Connie After Dark, my live virtual bar, where you can have milk to martini, and what happens there stays there. Yep, that's right. The other shows you can see the archive, but this one, no, nobody sees whatever happens again ever, unless it's a court order. That's just the way it is. And now new, the Connie Willis, the podcast, made it easy for you. Connie Willis, the podcast, that is on Spreaker. Of course, you can hear that across the board anywhere, but that's where you can get any live shows that I hope to do in the future. We have Robert Treat continuing. That is the whistleblower. And he's basically got some information where he's talking about what he sees in the future as a UFO type hoax type thing. Is that what's happening now? Well, catch up by going to Connie Willis, the podcast, more of them dropping on Monday. And then Philip Kinsella of the Kinsella twins from the UK, an amazing person, and his brother too. They he is interviewing him as well. On my show on Connie Willis the podcast, and that will be on the coming week as well. So catch up, go check it out. Thank you so much for supporting it. Get set. I've learned this about podcasting. Put it on, go into the settings and hit auto download. Then you know you got it. Because sometimes people like me can decide to take that podcast off, that actual drop off. So, go ahead and get the download so you know that you've heard it and you've got it. So that's how you can do all that. And if you get lost and can't remember this, go to ConnieWillis.com. In fact, my next Blue Rock Talk show on the 23rd, that's where Captain Martin Bayerle is going to be joining me, so you can see him in person. He'll be on my podcast as well, but you can see him on person, where we're going to show a lot of the pictures that he has. Always fun to do, and he's always fun to have on. As you guys can tell, he's quite a hoot, and and I just love talking with him. Now, Martin, before you talk about the new information, I just want to give some people the visual of how close this is to where, like a lot of when you're trying to salvage treasures, sometimes it is just way too deep, or it's in some crazy area that it's never going to happen. But yours is pretty much kind of, I don't know I think you still tell people where it is. I'm not sure. Sometimes you got to be quiet about that, but tell them where it is, like that it's actually something easy to salvage, but also let them know the size of the ship and why it's kind of difficult.
All right, Connie. I just wanted to circle back to use a White House press agent phrase. I wanted to circle back just to tie things up on the research. It's basically the ship has its cargo for the reasons I've outlined in my book, The Czar's Treasure, and the updated research is available at lordsoffortune.com. There are company research reports both on the Russian State Bank cargo and the U.S. Navy's cargo. The U.S. Navy, we've since proven both cargoes. The U.S. Navy cargo, again, was $800,000 face value, was going to the Great White Fleet at Gibraltar. That's about $200 to $300 million today. And we have the actual payment by the Treasury Department to White Star Line for that shipment. And the Russian State Bank cargo, the now $25 million, we always wondered why they would borrow $3 million. Well, what they did is they sold $25 million in bonds in New York. But since they're the 1909 bonds, you can't sell them at face value. You have to sell them at a discount. So they sold them at $22 million for $25 million in bonds. And to balance the transaction, they borrowed the $3 million shortfall. So that's why they had the 30-day loan. And this relates to the settling of the Portsmouth Peace Treaty between Russia and Japan in 1905. It's all in the research report. It's a forensic financial analysis, and you need to know all of the information to understand why the gold's on board. It's not as simple like the Central America. The newspapers reported it on the Central America cargo, and they reported it because the cargoes were insured, and the insurance companies have to pay off, so they might as well acknowledge the loss. And you have newspaper accounts of what was lost on the Central America. Republic, on the other hand, were government shipments. Governments are self-insured, and when a government loses a cargo, as I mentioned before, in the Laurentic and the Edinburgh and the Niagara, when government loses a cargo, they don't acknowledge it until after the cargoes have been recovered. And, of course, this was Tsar's gold, and what happened is when the ship sank in 1909, it was beyond salvage technology. It's only in 240 feet of water, 50 miles south of Nantucket. So finding the wreck was not particularly difficult. It took us 2.5 days to find the wreck. Working the wreck with the wreck that we have today, with the technology we have today, working the wreck is not going to be particularly difficult. The most difficult part of this whole venture is proving the cargoes. And we've done that now. We have a witness statement on the $25 million shipment from the granddaughter of the wireless operator of Republic. She's 76 now, but she talks about what her grandfather used to tell her. And I heard her presentation in 2009, and she said, "Oh, $25 million. The ship sank with $25 million." When I heard it in 2009, I said, "She doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm the expert. There's only $3 million on there, so I couldn't use it in 2009. But in 2017, I came into the $25 million conclusion independently. And I went back and listened to her. She made a presentation on the net. It's all in our Russian State Bank report, which, again, is available at the research section of our Lords of Fortune site. I heard a presentation on the net again. I reheard it, and there she says, $25 million. There, that's it. That's why I don't mention it in my 2013 book, because I didn't have support for it. That's why I didn't mention it in the 2016 billion-dollar wreck, because I didn't have a support for it. In 2017, I developed the support for it, re-listened to her 2009 presentation. She says $25 million. It's $25 million. They sold $25 million in bonds in New York. They sold them at a discount for $22 million. They borrowed the $3 million shortfall. So the loan information is still valid, but now we brought it into the whole transaction. So that's $800,000 for the Navy payroll. That's $200 to $300 million today. We have the $25 million in Russian State Bank. These are all gold double eagles. These are going to be newly minted double eagle gold coins. We have an appraisal at that of between between 4.6 and 6 billion. But again, if you run the numbers, I think that's very conservative. I think it's going to come closer to $10 billion. So this will be, as I refer to it, as the GOAT, GOAT, the greatest of all treasures. And there's been nothing larger. The San Jose down off of Colombia, they say $20 billion. But if you do any research on that wreck, the most they will have, and this is solid research, is about $4 billion. Still not a bad recovery, but it's not the holy grail as they make out. Republic is the holy grail. And that's the reason why it was never brought up, because what happened when the Bolsheviks took over in 1917, getting into a little history of when the Bolsheviks seized power in Russia in 1917, killed the Tsar, and they had the Russian Civil War between 1917 and 1922, 1923, until the Reds took over. But what happened is when the Bolsheviks seized power, they repudiated all Tsarist debt. So the bonds they sold in New York became worthless. No one's going to give them gold on the Republic for the sale of worthless bonds in New York, and no one wanted to support the Bolsheviks in the political arena. I mean, it was France, England, and the United States basically were anti-Bolshevik. So when the ship sank, the White Russians, the Tsar's Russians, aren't going to give this information to the Bolsheviks. The Bolsheviks have no claim on it because they repudiated their bonds. And what happened to those bonds? This makes an interesting story. What happened to those bonds? Once the Bolsheviks repudiated the bonds they sold in New York, the U.S. government ended up with all of the bonds because they basically bailed out the bankers. So the U.S. government took the bonds and exchanged them for U.S. government bonds. So the U.S. government became the owner of these became worthless Russian bonds. In 1934, when we recognized the Soviet Union, when the Bolsheviks took over, the Bolsheviks repudiated all their debt. Well, we froze all the Tsarist assets in the United States. We're not going to let the Bolsheviks take money out of the country when they repudiated all their debt and they seized U.S. property or U.S.-owned property in Russia. So the Bolsheviks repudiated the debt, and that repudiation existed until 1934 when we had to recognize the Soviet Union to stop the German expansionism, to limit Germans' expansionist goals, basically. So we recognized the Soviet Union in 1934 pursuant to what they call the Litvinov Agreement. And the Litvinov Agreement basically said, well, U.S. government, you seized all these Tsarist assets. We're communists now. That's all property of the state. You take our property and apply it as you will to outstanding Tsarist debt. And, of course, who was one of the creditors of the Tsarist government with the repudiated bonds? The U.S. government itself. So the U.S. government paid itself off out of seized Tsarist assets. So when they filed a claim in our Admiralty action saying we own all the gold on board, when they filed that claim, I always wondered why they said they owned all the gold on board. Because I identified a U.S. Navy shipment and a Russian shipment of $3 million, which may be owned by the French banks, which were the syndicate banks that put their loan together, or the Russian government. I didn't consider that the U.S. government owned it. That's why they filed a claim against all the gold, because they would have owned all the gold. But the problem is that they already had paid themselves out of gold they seized when the Bolsheviks seized power. They froze the Tsarist assets, and the government then used those assets and applied the seized assets to outstanding Tsarist debt, which included itself. So they'd already paid themselves. The Russian government has no interest because when we recognized the Soviet Union, we said the Soviet Union agrees to abide by the decisions of U.S. district courts regarding the disposition of Tsarist assets. Well, that's exactly what we have. We have a U.S. district court decision awarding us title to the shipwreck and all of our cargoes. And when we went into this, we notified originally the Soviet government and then, of course, the Russian Federation. We notified them on every single filing we made because I wanted someone to say, yes, it's our cargo, here's the proof. And that's why the Soviets really never came about, because they recognized they don't really own it. You know, they don't own it because they gave it up when we recognized the Soviet Union in 1934. The U.S. government paid off the bonds. The U.S. government owned it, but they'd already paid themselves out of seized Tsarist assets. So we own the Russian gold at this point. Russia has no claim. The U.S. government has no claim. The U.S. government sued us for a decade, and we've since had them dismissed with prejudice. They didn't appeal because they recognized that they had already paid themselves. They can't double dip into the gold on Republic. So we are the only owners of formerly government property. U.S. Navy, they could have argued the U.S. Navy cargo, but they apparently gave that up, by simply saying, it's too much trouble. $300 million is nice for a payday for individuals, but for a government, it's a tolerable loss. Several billion, they already paid themselves for the Russian gold, and so Russia has no claim. The U.S. government's been dismissed with prejudice. We are now owners of the wreck and all of our cargoes. All future claims are barred by court order, so we're in the most secure legal position. But that was the problem. The problem was no one could identify whose gold it was, even though there was a rumor of $3 million. There was a short-term loan, but there was no borrower, no lender. There was this money that went on the Oceanic, and that once you research it, which takes years, you realize that arrived. And when you look at it on its face, you say, well, Russia wouldn't be the borrower because Russia just closed a $240 million loan in Europe. Why do they have to borrow money in New York? Well, that's the point. If you look at it at the surface, until you get to the actual syndicate document, and you see how Russia was paid, they didn't get a nickel of that money for 30 days, and then $90 million was paid over 6 months. So that's why they had to borrow the $3 million. But then you recognize that they sold $25 million in bonds in New York. That's why they borrowed the $3 million, because the bonds that they sold, actually they sold them against 1904 bonds that the state bank held, which came due in May. So they were paying themselves for the bonds that they had sold in 1909 to replace the 1904 bonds. That's why they borrowed the $3 million as a shortfall, so the transaction balanced. It's all on our website, lordsoffortune.com. In the research section is an internal state bank report. There's the U.S. Navy report, a lot of interesting source documents. So, yes, it's a forensic financial analysis, but that's precisely why the money stayed on there, because they had to cover up the loss, because if the loss had been acknowledged, Russia would not have been able to refinance its 1904 loan coming due. It would have collapsed financially, which would have caused a world panic on the financial markets, and that's why they had to cover this up. And that's why it sat there, because it was in limbo from political reasons. All the other cargoes, the Laurentic, the Niagara, the Egypt, the Edinburgh, all those governments all those salvages were contract salvages by the original owners of the government. Here, the original owner of the Tsar's government ceased to exist, and no one's going to give that money to the Bolsheviks or the subsequent Soviet Union. So that's why it sat. It sat for political reasons. The wreck was undisturbed for 2 world wars when I found her. She was pristine. And that's why. And she's not on any chart, or she wasn't on any chart until after I found her. And then they put her on the chart. But she was deliberately concealed and covered up. There was no official inquiry into her loss, because in an official inquiry in Britain, they would have had to put people under oath. They would have had to produce the manifests. And they couldn't allow that to happen because of it would jeopardize the existence of the Tsarist Russian government. So it's a fascinating, detailed sleuthing story. It's a real detective story, and that's why the wreck sat there, because no one could prove the cargo. You have to get internal bank documents to prove the cargo. You have to get a lot of research, and basically you're looking at 40 years of work. So they say male fishers are tocha. Oh, it took them 17 years. 17 years. You hear that all the time. I'm now putting more time in this than Moses did to find the promised land.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Holy cow, dude. I love it. I love it. I love your passion, and I love all the work that you've put into it. It is totally your claim. All of that is yours. Anything that ever comes up, just for time reasons, I can't ask you the questions that I want to ask you yet, because we got to take another break. You've done well. You have done well, Grasshopper, with giving out all the information. And just real quick, if you can give a real quick answer before we take a break, what is the size of the Republic in relation to the Titanic, so people get a better idea visually?
Well, Republic's 15,000 tons. Titanic's 45,000 tons, but Republic was the largest vessel to sink in history to her day in 1909, succeeded only 3 years later by Titanic. And there's a direct link between the two, and here's a common scenario. People on
Save that for me. We'll be back. It's Coast to Coast AM with Connie Willis, and it's Coast to Coast AM. Connie Willis here. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do. At least go to ConnieWillis.com and sign up for my newsletter. That would be great. Head on over there, ConnieWillis.com. So we have the Super Bowl tomorrow, and hopefully you have a team to cheer on, or at least a place to go and have a good time. It's always fun. Now, when I think of the Super Bowl, that's when my dad had passed away on Super Bowl Sunday. Can you believe that? On Super Bowl Sunday. So now when I think of Super Bowl, or at least for a good amount of time now, since 2010, that's kind of what I think about in the day. So we definitely watched it on that day, because he used to watch it, which is amazing, because he was never really into sports, but it's a big party for the United States, right? I mean, we're into it. So anyway, that's what it reminds me of. And I lived in Philly at one point, so I guess I'm going to have to go Eagles here. I'm going Eagles because people would kill me otherwise that I used to know that still live in that area because that's the way they are, man. They are like, woo, they are into it. I can't imagine what's going on over there in the city right now. Anyway, so really cool things. And Valentine's as well. This is an interesting weekend. Lots of things happening on, pretty noisy outside the window of where I am. So we have Captain Martin Bayerle. You can find his work, and he's got lots of it at the lordsoffortune.com. Lordsoffortune.com. If you can't figure that out, you can always go to Coast to Coast AM because we have his links up there, because one of them is also a link set up to the gallery from the rms-republic.com. And then there's the gallery, and it's got all sorts of great pictures of everything that he's talking about. Now, when we left, we were cut off again. I was trying to give everybody the idea of the size of what he's talking about that is down below where he's going to pull up the gold. And you were saying, we were talking about in relation with the Titanic. By the way, is there some sort of anniversary with the Titanic too?
Well, the April 15th is coming about, and that's, of course, she sank in April 15th, 1912. And the interesting thing, when you read about Titanic, you watch the movie, you see all the early boats were only partially filled. The life raft, the lifeboats, were only partially filled. Now, imagine, if you will, all right, I'm sure some of your audience wasn't even alive, but if we think about the 9/11 airplane World Trade Center tragedy attack, if you will. If you're in a tall skyscraper and an airplane crashes into it, well, that's going to be your reference. And that's 21, 22 years ago. Now, let's suppose you're a passenger on Titanic, 1912, and you're wealthy, and in 1909, Republic sank in 1909. Republic was considered unsinkable. Republic sank after 39 hours. She was being towed back to New York when she sank. So now you're on a larger vessel, a brand new vessel. Republic was built in 1903, so she was only 6 years old in 1909. But now you're on a Titanic, brand new vessel, 45,000 tons, 3 times the size of Republic. Also considered unsinkable. Republic was considered unsinkable as well, but she sank after 39 hours. So here I am. Imagine yourselves as a passenger on Titanic, and they're saying, well, we have to get in the lifeboats. And you're familiar with Republic. Republic was the first wireless distress signal for use, practical use for distress at sea. So it brought other vessels to the area. They started arriving about 16, 18 hours later after the signal went out. So they started arriving. So you're on the Titanic, and it glanced an iceberg. All right, some ice is on the deck. It glanced an iceberg. Republic was almost T-boned in half, a 90-degree penetration of her engine room. I mean, people knocked people out of their beds 5:40 a.m. in the morning, whereas Titanic, it scrapes, a little shaking here and there. So what is going to be your reference? You're going to think 1909, Republic stayed afloat for 39 hours. I'm not going to get into that lifeboat. I'll wait until there's an absolute necessity to do so. And that's why the early lifeboats were only partially filled, because no one wanted to get in a lifeboat in the middle of April. It was freezing out when they didn't think there was a necessity to do so, and their reference was Republic. Now, Republic also didn't undergo an inquiry into her loss. She was the largest vessel in history to sink to her day. 6 lives were lost in the immediate collision. All are rescued. The passengers were rescued. 1,500 passengers were rescued. Incidentally, the same number that were lost on Titanic, roughly. 15, and the wireless pulled other vessels to the scene, so the rescue worked out flawlessly. That's another reason why they didn't think they needed enough lifeboats, or for everyone, because you could use lifeboats to shuttle people back and forth. So that's why the early lifeboats were not filled. And if you look at the Titanic inquiry, they had 2 inquiries, one in the U.S. and one in Britain. If you look at those inquiries, Republic is mentioned very slightly, but no one No one mentions, its connection to Titanic. That there was no inquiry. In fact, in Parliament, there was a question raised that both after the Republic's loss and after the Titanic loss. After the Republic's loss, they said, was there an inquiry? No, there was no inquiry because we couldn't subpoena the members of the crew members of the Florida, which hit Republic. Well, that really makes no sense. Vessels are lost in their entirety, and you still have an inquiry, particularly when lives are lost. But after Titanic was lost, they asked the same question. Was there an inquiry into the loss of Republic? Why? Because all the issues regarding Titanic's loss, speed under adverse conditions, bulkhead construction, wireless telegraphy, use of lifeboats, all were used in Republic, would have impacted Titanic. And there was no inquiry, and therefore the actual suppression of the Republic inquiry resulted in the collateral damage of Titanic. At least a good argument can be made in that regard. But even in books on Titanic, they don't mention, the inquiries don't mention Republic. The books regarding Titanic don't mention Republic. They don't mention the reason why the early lifeboats were only partially filled, because everyone on the Titanic knew about Republic. Republic was front page news around the world, and everyone was saved from the wireless. But even the movies don't mention that. That would have been the discussion among the passengers. Well, I'm not going to get into a lifeboat. Republic stayed afloat for 39 hours. We'll just wait until we see other boats, and then we'll get in. I was going to stay nice and warm in my cabin. Of course, then when they recognized it, 2 hours later that the ship was actually sinking, well, that was a bit late to get into the lifeboat that already moved away from Titanic. But, and the reason for that is the Republic's loss was suppressed. She was not on any chart until after I found her. She was not on any anti-submarine warfare chart of World War I or World War II. Sources that I looked at when I tried to find Republic during World War I and World War II, the U.S. Navy plotted every shipwreck around the coast. But Republic is conspicuous by its absence from the ASW charts. Of course, the ASW anti-submarine warfare charts that filtered down the public access, they would redact classified wrecks before the charts reached public access. That's why Republic's not on it, because Republic carried a valuable cargo owned by the U.S. government until 1934 and then was left in limbo because the U.S. government paid itself off out of seized Tsarist assets.
So, Martin, if I can jump in here real quick, I just want to get a couple questions in. I definitely want to take some phone calls for people. I don't want to stop you in the middle, but I'm going to jump in while you had to hack. It was about the only time I could do it, which is fine, by the way. But, when I think of the shipwreck out there in the middle of, right, you said if you're sitting at Martha's Vineyard, you can, look out and you're basically seeing where it is. What are the concerns of other people coming in the open sea there and just trying to see what they can see and do what they might do? Do you ever have that concern, and what is the security about with that?
Well, the shipwreck lies directly in the center of the outbound shipping traffic lane between Ambrose, which is the New York lighthouse, and Nantucket Light. So right in the center of the outbound shipping traffic line, this is sometimes referred to as the 42nd Street of the Atlantic because of all the traffic that traverses. And the Republic is directly in the center of that traffic lane. So it would be virtually impossible for someone to go there and be unnoticed for any period of time to do any work. In addition, our coasts are the most heavily surveilled in the world, by the U.S. government and satellite surveillance. So again, it's something that you couldn't go and work clandestinely without being noticed. And why bother? I mean, if they did work clandestinely, they're stealing property. It's my property. I own it legally. So
that would be called a pirate, right?
Yeah, that would be piracy. It would be piracy. Then what do you do with it? You'd have to bring it someplace, and it's the importation of stolen property. We've had a dive boat on there where we called the FBI, and the FBI investigates this because it's for those reasons. It would be piracy, theft on the high seas, as well as wherever you land, it's going to be importation of stolen property. In brief, it's given that the size of the cargo is several $1 billion, it would take the operational season is basically June through August. And given that much gold, historically, it's taken several years to get it all out. So what's the point? Much better to strike a deal with me. We only need really $5 million to do this. $5 million gets us to the gold. And, of course, once we see the gold, then we can debt finance whatever we need. We anticipate it's going to be $20 to $25 million to get it all out. So given that the payoff is several billion dollars, the return on investment is going to be 40, 50 to 100 to 1. So why take the risk? Also, what do you do with the gold? What are you going to melt it down? Yeah, if you melt all the gold down, it would come out to $2.4 billion. But it's worth numismatically $7, $8, $10 billion. So, I mean, by melting it down, you lose a proportion. It's better to strike a deal with me and take a share, which therefore is guaranteed. You can increase the market value of your coins that you sell because you say they came from the Republic. We get a lot of media exposure, which of course increases the market value of the coins. It's simply a better business deal. And, piracy has significant penalties, importation of stolen property, significant penalties. We use the full power of the U.S. government to protect our interests. And again, where it's located, right in the center of one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. There are tankers and freighters passing that site every hour or every, quite frequently. As I said, they refer to it as the 42nd Street of the Atlantic.
Well,
So
if somebody is able to bring it up, and then, of course, it sounds like they would get caught, and all you can do at that point is go, thank you for bringing it up for us, because it sounds like it's going to get back to you.
Basically, that's it, particularly since we are owners.
Yep.
I mean, this is one of the problems with government cargoes, since our government claims have been dismissed with prejudice. The U.S. government filed a claim. We litigated with them for a decade before we got them out of the case. We were the last man standing with the U.S. government, and the court said, well, all right, bring your proof that you own the cargoes. And, of course, they couldn't do that because they'd already been paid out of seized RS assets. So they didn't come back, and the court dismissed them with prejudice and gave us full. And she said, the Judge Nancy Gertner said, do you want to own the wreck? Of course, Your Honor. So she gave us ownership. Not only do we have ownership, we have a court order barring all future claims. So this is not like a typical treasure hunt where you go out like the Mercedes, which was a classic one with Odyssey. They go out and recover a Spanish cargo from a Spanish ship. It's a sovereign cargo. That's the problem with treasure hunting today. All these major recoveries are owned by a sovereign at some point, as was our cargoes aboard Republic. But our cargoes aboard Republic were owned by a sovereign that ceased to exist. And the successor government agreed to abide by the decisions of U.S. district courts regarding the disposition of Tsarist assets. And the U.S. government, who had the subrogated interest since they took all the bonds that the Bolsheviks defaulted on, had already paid themselves. So that's the beauty. We own it free and clear without any possibility. Of course, someone will always sue, no doubt, but they have an extremely high threshold to overcome. And we've been upfront with the U.S. government and the Russian government from day one. We notified both of them of our claims based on the information we had at the time. We thought it was only $3 million Russian cargo, and now we since worked through the ownership issues, and that's why the U.S. government filed a claim claiming all the gold, because at one time they did own all the gold, but once they paid themselves, they can't double dip into the cargo on the ship. So it's a legal story, it's a history story. It's a detective sleuthing story, financial sleuthing, basically a forensic financial analysis of why the cargoes are on board. And that information, that's why it's still there, is because in order to assemble all those facts and all that information is literally years of research, and no one put the effort in. Because they look at it superficially, it says no gold, Russia wouldn't need gold. But when you get the actual syndicate documents for the 1909 loan, yeah, Russia needed the money. And that's why it's sad, because the ownership was in limbo. The Tsar, the original owner, ceased to exist. No one was going to give the Bolsheviks the gold for bonds that they repudiated and defaulted on. And the U.S. government, who had the subrogated interest, paid itself already out of seized RS assets. So we're left with owning everything. Even the U.S. Navy cargo we own, because the government didn't pursue that either. Once I guess they felt that, we're going to have to plow right through the Russian gold to get to the Russian gold is going to be in the second-class baggage room, which is higher up, because it loaded on January 22nd, the day of the Republic sale. The specie room will have also that much gold would need the second-class baggage room. That's why there were no second-class passengers on board, because they had no place to put their baggage. So the second-class baggage room is going to contain the Russian gold. The specie room, which is a smaller room, is going to contain the Navy money, and that's a little lower. That's $300 million. Not a bad payday by itself, but the Russian gold. And there's more on there. I've always said when I said $3 million, there's more on there than $3 million. Then we confirmed the $25 million shipment. And I say there's even more on that than the $25 million and the $800,000. We have inklings of a silver bar shipment coming through from Mexico going to Europe, being transshipped. We have a gold bar shipment, and we also have a number of articles saying the French bankers were buying gold in New York in support of the Russian gold. So there may be more than the $25 million. Which, we're at $7 to $10 billion with the money we've already identified. There's more on there. All right, well, that's fine.
Oh, man. Yeah. Breathe again. Breathe. Lordsoffortune.com. You can learn more. Lordsoffortune.com. Learn more. Captain Martin Bayerle and his story with the Tsar's treasure. It's his. He's just got to get it. And he's working on that. Can't find any more passion. Stay with us. More to come. Connie Willis here on Coast to Coast AM. It's Coast to Coast AM. Connie Willis here. Please sign up for my newsletter at conniewillis.com. Join over there and see all the goodies that we've got. I'd love to have you do that. Please. It's nice for you to join. Okay. Wow. Super Bowl Sunday. It is official. It's here. Valentine's Day coming up. Oh my gosh. If you have a Valentine, take care of them, say something sweet, and, have a good time. That's what it's about. Just, cook for each other. You don't always have to go out. I know the restaurants don't want me to say that, but, it's just nice to spend time together cooking yourself, or just, call somebody and say happy Valentine's to them, whoever it might be. It's just always a nice thing. Okay, let's see. Did I cover everything? Because before Martin starts talking again, hold on. Let's get a caller in. Let's do that. That's what I wanted to do. Let's hit the phone lines because I promised that we would take some calls. Let's go to Joe. Joe, east of the Rockies. Hey there, Joe. Welcome to Coast to Coast. How you doing?
Hi, Martin. How you doing? I have two quick questions. First of all,
this is Connie, but we'll say it to Martin too.
Connie. Also, happy Super Bowl Sunday, Connie.
Thank you. And by the way, Martin, Joe is from Long Island, New York. If you couldn't,
okay, that's my home, my old stomping grounds.
That's right.
Just before we move on a Super Bowl, who's playing? The Eagles. Well, what do I have? I have $25 million in double Eagles. So I think there's a little omen there.
I think I know who you're cheering on tomorrow or tonight. So go ahead, Joe.
Yeah. Okay. First off, I would ask, at the time, wouldn't they have thought, and this goes presently and with the trains and planes as well, to stagger the transport of gold and not put it all on one transport or one flight or one train, with the idea that anything could go wrong on one trip? That would be my first question. My second question would be a lot of wealthy people were on the Titanic. Did anybody ever explore how the estates were settled of these people after that, and how whether it was in courts or whatever on some of those extremely wealthy people on the Titanic?
Oh yeah, well we had the Republic was known as the millionaire ship. So, because of all the millionaires that were traveling on Republic, and in addition, when the ship was in a collision, they got all the passengers off. They thought the ship would stay afloat, but they got the passengers off because she had no power. The collision was in the engine room, so it knocked out her boilers and electrical system. So she was a dark and cold ship at that point. And since she was in the shipping lane, there was always a possibility in a dense fog, since they didn't have radar at the time, that she would be hit by another vessel. That's the reason why they moved the passengers off Republic. But in terms of the claims, you actually now get into one of my areas of expertise. When I was researching Republic, I was researching in the Southern District of New York records, and when they were located in the Bayonne archives. And I was researching Oceanic Steam Navigation Company, which was the business name for White Star Line. And I ran into the claims of 1909, and people had filed their claims. And I said, well, let's go further, 1910, 1911. All of a sudden, I hit all of these claims in 1912. And, of course, they all related to Titanic. And I was speaking to Charlie Haas, who was president of the Titanic Historical Society, and his buddy Jack Eaton. They're authors and experts on Titanic. They had written several books. And I called him up. I said, I was a bit naive at the time. I said, Charlie, have you seen the Titanic insurance claims? He said, what insurance claims? I said, there are boxes and boxes of them sitting here in the Bayonne National Archives from the Southern District of New York regarding the litigation. Now, what would happen is when the vessel sank, people would file a claim in what they call the Harder Act Limitation of Liability Act. The problem with the Harder Act, you could not claim by law anything of great value, gold, diamonds, jewelry. But people filed for the loss of a hobby horse for their child or clothing or other items. But the Harder Act limited the liability of the shipping company to the value of its ship. So when Titanic sank, what was the value of the ship? Zero. So there's basically no recourse. I think they could claim the passenger fees, which White Star Line held, but that was the extent of their liability. The same for Republic. Republic was also a White Star Liner. When she sank, they filed in the Limitation of Liability Act. But interesting, they settled. It never went to court. They settled the Republic transactions. They didn't want it to go to court because they didn't want to put anyone under oath. So they settled it, and they even settled claims for gold and jewelry submitted by certain passengers, which were by law not permissible in a Harder Act limitation, but they simply didn't want to, they simply wanted to get rid of it and settle it. Now, as far as shipment, the shipment at the time when you did international transactions, they went by ship. Gold was the medium of exchange, and foreign exchange was quite active. So multi-million-dollar shipments on particular vessels were not unusual. They were common. A $25 million shipment was one of the larger shipments, but still not uncommon. So, and of course, Republic was considered one unsinkable. She was the largest ship in history to sink to her day, and there hadn't been any major losses, in the preceding 2 decades or so, or at least a decade, on a major shipping loss. So, and of course, what you do is you have insurance. Governments, however, are self-insured because their assets are so vast and wide that if they paid out insurance premiums, they would be paying more in insurance premiums than they would actually suffer in losses. So most governments are self-insured, and they have a captive insurance company or captive insurance bookkeeping, if you will. So when the Navy lost its money, the U.S. government took the loss. When the Russian gold lost its money, the Tsarist government took its loss, of course. And then when the Bolsheviks repudiated the bonds in 1917, and the U.S. government took over the debt. So I hope that that should answer both your questions. That the amount is not unusual. It's not uncommon for a $25 million shipment. But multi-million-dollar shipments at the time were very common, and they went by ship, which was a very secure and safe method of transport.
All right, so let's hit another call here real quick. Wild card line number 1, Todd, Bellevue, Washington. Hey there, Todd. You're on the air.
Thank you, Connie. Now, I'd like to ask the gentleman here with the claim of the Titanic and the Olympic switching theory. You've got a boiler room on Titanic on fire most of the trip, and then you have the claim that the California was empty of people and waiting with a bunch of blankets and life vests. So, I don't know if you discredit this theory, but have you analyzed whether or not any of these claims are true?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I said I delved. I guess the way we can look at Republic is cui bono, who benefits, follow the money. And the Oceanic Titanic switch is premised on an insurance claim. But when you understand how White Star Line was insured, that whole premise falls apart. White Star Line was owned by the International Mercantile Marine Company, which was J.P. Morgan's attempt to monopolize shipping on the North Atlantic. So he bought White Star Line, he bought Leyland Line, he bought Dominion Line. and one or two other lines. So since he owned a number of shipping lines, again, what he did is he created a self-insurance fund through IMM. So rather than these separate companies paying private insurers, they would pay IMM, the self-insurance fund, and then any losses would be paid out of the self-insurance fund from IMM to cover its losses. And the self-insurance fund by IMM was routinely profitable, even with the loss of Republic and even with the loss of Titanic. Of course, Titanic was insured to some extent privately, but it was insured to a substantial effect by IMM's self-insurance funds. So therefore, if we look to who benefits, IMM took a loss because they were self-insured on a good part of Republic's loss. In addition, if you look at the artifacts that were recovered from Titanic, the props, for example, the helms, they all have stamped on them the hull number that was Harlan and Wolff's yard number. I have the aft helm on Republic, and if you look at the stanchion of the helm, it's stamped A345, which was the hull number for Republic. And I believe Titanic's hull number was 401. But in any event, the hull numbers correspond on the artifacts that are recovered correspond to Harlan and Wolff's yard number, which confirms that the ship that did sink is indeed Titanic. It's a good way to create a faux conspiracy, but when you understand the facts, when you understand self-insurance, when you understand who benefits cui bono when something is lost, and which is exactly what we did with Republic. We figured out who benefits, who lost the money, and why would they need to cover it up. Because the loss, if it had been acknowledged at the time, would have caused the collapse of the Tsarist government, which was in a pre-World War environment, which would have jeopardized international security between the British, French, and the United States in a pre-World War I environment. So
there you go. Captain Bayerle will be on Blue Rock Talk, my show, in the coming weeks on the 23rd. So if you'd like to join my show, you will get to see him and talk with him and see a lot of the pictures that he has. And he's always a hoot, and he's always fun to be around, especially on the show. And I think we've always had to do a second show with you because we just kept on talking, which is fine. We can throw it on Connie After Dark if that happens. You also have a book coming out, in the process of writing a new book. The release is in May, and that is currently entitled GOAT, which is GOAT, the greatest of all treasures. And that's I love it. I love, you're the best writer in the world, by the way. The absolutely jaw-dropping new research discoveries. Absolutely love that. You can go to lordsoffortune.com and find out more information. Just mounds of it. And also some really great pictures in the gallery. That's at rms-republic.com. So I wanted to leave plenty of time for you to say some last words before you go, because time flies when we talk with you.
Yeah, I love talking. I love answering questions, and I think perhaps next time we'll simply devote the whole issue to calling people so I can answer questions. But
we'll do that. You'll definitely do that on Blue Rock. Yeah.
Right, but right now, as I said, we're looking to finance our operation. The cargoes are confirmed. You can read the research. Of course, one never knows until you actually see them. But the wreck where the cargoes would be located is undisturbed and unexcavated. We have recent surveys of the vessel that are on our website. There's a location report on the research section that shows the vessel as she sits today from 2021. For our 2021 survey, the areas, again, are unexcavated and unexplored. And we need $5 million to get to the cargo. Once we get to the cargo, it will probably take another $20 to $25 million to get it out over 2 or 3 years. But once we sight the gold, then we can debt finance any balance. So $5 million gets us there and gets us to complete the recovery. Now, we do have a WeFunder. The site, lordsoffortune.com, is a regulation, what they call a Regulation D offering. It's for the high rollers. There's a minimum investment of $1 million required there. The WeFunder site, we can also raise money under the new SEC rules for regulation crowdfunding. We do have a crowdfunding potential offering available at WeFunder.com, and simply search for Lords of Fortune at WeFunder.com. And the minimum investment there is only $100. So if we can get 50,000 people to put in $100 each, we cover our $5 million.
I love it. I love that. Hey, it's good. Be sure to tell your son hello.
Oh yes, maybe we'll have him on the show next time.
Yeah. You were like, he needs his practice. I'm like, okay, exactly. But hey, I want your dream to come true. And you just, thanks so much for being here and giving us the information. I know we can keep on going, but we got to run. So enjoy the Super Bowl and happy Valentine's to you. And thanks for joining me.
Yes, be my Valentine there, Connie. So
you got it. Okay. I'm your Valentine.
There we go.
Thanks, Martin. Take care.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye. He's always great to have on, and I'll have him on my show, Blue Rock Talk, in the coming weeks. So enjoy my show. Go to ConnieWillis.com. I'll have him on the podcast as well. And I may do a live one which has the live chat. This is all on Spreaker. So if you're in the other ones, you're not going to hear that. You're just going to hear it later. But if you go to the Spreaker, Connie Willis, the podcast, you're going to be able to chat as well. And, live chat, like ask them questions. So I'm working on that. So go over there and subscribe so you'll know when that kind of thing happens. So I wish you the best on the Super Bowl games. I want you to be safe, enjoy the day and enjoy the fun and enjoy the friends. And on Valentine's Day too, hey, that's what the weekend's for, right? There's going to be a lot, all this stuff is happening now. There's so many, the restaurants were jam packed when I was walking around them earlier tonight. And it's so sweet. I'm glad that people still do that where they take people out. That's very, very nice. So lordsoffortune.com is where you can find Captain Martin Bayerle. And earlier we had Cryptid 559. That's where you can find Javier as well as Jesus at their YouTube channel and also their Facebook page. And again, it's Cryptid 559. Where you can find me, ConnieWillis.com. And just a quick thank you to everybody that is a part of Coast to Coast. Julie Talbot, Bill May, Lisa Lyon, Tommy Danheiser, Dan Galani, Stephanie Smith, Mike Cosio, Lex Lonehood, Sean Ledesur, Tim Banal, Gina Salvati, Donna Walker, thanks so much, Greg Foster, Tom Narins, Ryan Stacy, Chris Burrows, Adam Thompson, Ian Punnett, Lisa Garr, Richard Sirrett, George Knapp, and the man, George Norrie. That's the Coast to Coast AM team. And here from the foothills of the Colorado Rockies, until we meet again, I'm Connie Willis, Connie Willis, the podcast, ConnieWillis.com. That's where I'd like for you to join, subscribe, and have fun with me. Until we meet again, keep watching the night skies and continue with me to seek out the strange and uncover the unknown. For Coast to Coast AM, I'm Connie Willis.